quick little introduction. So all my other characters, they all just use random generated names, kind of just from the random pool that you get when you create a character. This time I decided to actually name my character and name my mastiff. So this is Major Kusanagi with her trusty companion Mr. Ziggles. Of a stuffed bear I've had since I was a kid, so that name's always kind of stuck with me. I also have a stray cat that I've named Mr. Ziggles, so it's just a special name to me. I am using the Maul voice over, which is Corellian's voice actor. I love her voice. I just love that little accent she has. So this is what's going on with my character. So this is actually my first name character.
Summoned me.
You have failed me, Ivan. All this time and still Atoma is not secured.
No one is more disappointed than I. There have been complications.
No more excuses. My time is running out.
So is yours.
What do you mean?
Atoma was always under Marshal Voltaire's jurisdiction. You have exhausted his patience. He has sent forces to restore the tide.
You have failed your duty. We have all failed. Atonement will come only when the tide is restored. We shall triumph in the names of our fallen, and of those who still uphold the Lex. This is the Marshal's command. This is how it shall be. This is the will of the Lex.
He doesn't have the authority.
He speaks for holy law. That is his authority. He will test you.
You have failed me again.
When do they arrive?
Right. So what's all this then?
So this is the Morning Star, Atoma's last great hope. I am not impressed. Inquisitor Grindel's reach greatly exceeds his grasp. Still, Marshal Vorturn has ordered that we offer every assistance to this cause. We shall set an example to these individuals. We shall remind them what it is to serve the Emperor, rather than an Inquisitor's veiled agenda. But first, avail yourself of the Psychanium facilities. Refresh your combat skills. We must none of us be found wanting.
Alright, so that's a neat little intro.
Welcome to the meat grinder. Everything here may feel real, but don't worry, you won't get hurt. Not unless you anger Persephone. Don't be alarmed by my little puppets, but do shoot them, or hit them, a lot, with whatever weapon takes your fancy. They won't feel it. They're not real. They exist only so that you can learn more about me and about the weapons you carry. Stay as long as you like. Stephanie likes the company and the taste of your bloodlust.
So they have revamped the entirety of the story to make it more linear this time around. Actually makes it easier to follow the story. This is something that Vermintide kind of did, but I'm going to assume that the way Darktide is going to implement the linear progression is going to be a little bit different than Vermintide's, because in Vermintide's, the story is tied towards chapters, and you got to complete a certain amount of missions in each chapter to actually progress to the next chapter, but you can actually just play whatever chapter you want if you do the quick play stuff. So that's kind of what happened with me, which means it made it a little bit difficult for me to actually follow the story of what's going on in Vermintide. So I had to go on the wiki to try and look up some of the lore, but Vermintide 2 has a shit ton of lore. It's not even funny. There's so much reading you got to do to follow up what's going on with the events of Vermintide 2. So hopefully Darktide can actually be a little bit easier to follow, especially for any new players that come in. The only thing I will say though is, even though you do have to pay $12 for the DLC, it's $11.99 for the Arbites DLC to play as the arbitrators. It was promised by Fat Shark that we were supposed to have the next 4 classes free. I don't know if this was supposed to include the Arbites DLC or not, but it is the first class that we've seen post-launch for 3 years. So it's been 3 years since Darktide came out, and we're just now getting our first class. But it was promised back then that we were supposed to have the first 4 classes free, which meant, you know, there is supposed to be a nice long road for Darktide. So who knows, maybe Arbites will be the first and only paid DLC for classes, and the next classes will be free, who knows. But let's just hop into it and see what this progression looks like. I might just skip all the basic training stuff. So I think for this time around, I actually might just play the Battle for Tertium campaign. I want to see what they changed, because it did add some new stuff, more voice lines, more cutscenes that are kind of within the story itself, just to kind of make it a little bit more immersive. So I might just do that. It's going to be a little bit slower paced, and I also want to see what they mean by you have to kind of earn your way to the higher difficulties. I could also just skip the campaign, but again, I don't want to. All right, let's go and see what the story is like now.
The mission terminal provides intel concerning where our diligence is required. We are few, and our strength spread thin. To prevail, we must fight alongside these rejects. However distasteful it may be to do so, restoring the Lex to Atoma means walking a long and dangerous road. It may be that none of us see its end. That is to be expected. Go forth. Atoma cries out for judgment. We shall provide it. This is the will of the Lex.
Okay, so this is the same exact cutscene in the original story. I believe it's Zora that's actually telling you what's going on, but now this time, same exact cutscene, only it's being told through the eyes of Zoran. I thought it might be a different cutscene, just because, you know, we're actually part of the Imperium, we're not rejects. Let's just see what happens. All right, so when it comes to marking enemies, the same button that's used to mark enemies, you actually press it twice, and that actually commands your dog to attack that enemy. Oh, look at that. So the secondary ability for the shotgun actually takes a shell from the top. So I wonder what that shell does, because I wasn't able to actually inspect the shotgun. I can already tell that the Cybermassive is going to make things much easier. Not a whole lot of enemies to deal with. Hopefully we do see some hordes start taking advantage of. Looks like the dog is actually automatically attacking. Okay, so I do like you don't have to actually target enemies to actually get your Cybermassive to actually attack. So it's passively attacking enemies, so that's actually pretty cool. So this essentially turns the 4-party of arbitrators into an 8-party essentially. I like that the shell, usually the shell caddy in other or not in other guns, but in other games, the shell caddy is just there for looks. But in here, it's actually functional. So apparently, the other thing too with the story and the difficulty is it'll slowly introduce new enemies to the game, and I'm guessing that's okay too. Kind of, it'll help you familiarize yourself with all the other enemies that are in the game, which means I doubt we're not going to see Plague Ogrins or Chaos Spawns anytime soon, because right now these are just Minor's threat level hordes. I also really like the shotgun. It's actually pretty fun. Eager to see what the talent tree looks like. See what kind of playstyles it'll give you. Also, kind of interested to see what kind of armor that that we'll get, armor options, because you know the armor options is already gonna be different. We're not wearing ragtag, convict-looking convict-looking clothing like we're in jail or something. So we actually have like legit armor. So I'm really interested to see what kind of varieties we'll see, especially for the premium outfits that we can buy.
That's the easy part done. Next up, Chasm Terminus and our unlucky arch heretic. In case you were wondering, so far I'm not impressed. Not one of you know Opus would last a day on Armageddon. Lucky for you, the time is a much softer billing. With a bit of luck, you might last long enough to be useful.
Okay, that voice line right there is directly meant for reject, so it looks like we don't have any specific dialogue for the arbitrators, because you definitely don't talk like that to an arbiter. To an arbiter. Oh, that's right. I've got grenades.
I stand alone, and never more than when you are beside me.
From the training, it looks like these grenades are impact grenades, so they explode as soon as they hit something. Might as well just see. Because they're also like a shot grenade type thing. Let's just see. Yep, impact grenade. So this was a slightly larger concentration of hordes, but not too much. Jeez, that little doggy's put in a lot of work. Also doesn't appear there's any new missions at all, which kind of sucks. It would be nice to have more missions, probably even ones that are kind of unique for arbitrators. This probably means that hopefully the next updates, major updates we see, are more like DLC worthy updates, adding new weapons and such, and then hopefully, you know, the major DLCs we see are more classes. I'm not gonna say that this is No Man's Sky level. I don't know where people are thinking that this is like No Man's Sky level of change to Darktide. It's definitely not. It's just nice that we're finally starting to see some real change and not just updates that are just nothing but patches and bug fixes. Definitely not No Man's Sky worthy, that's for sure. No Man's Sky was in a far better or far worse spot than Darktide was. Not to mention that's a whole different game, a much more popular game than Darktide will ever be. It's still strange, but also kind of cool to hear Corellian's voice in Darktide. I don't know what the secondary ability on the shotgun is. Like, what are these shells exactly? I'll have to go see if I can actually inspect it next time. Oh, it looks like a stun, maybe? Man, even bosses will be easier with having 4 dogs on the team. Because you know for a fact everyone's going to be playing Arbites for a while. At least for those who bought the DLC. Which, why wouldn't you? I mean, it's long overdue for a 4th class, or not for a 4th class, for a 5th class. New cutscene.
That could have gone tidier, but she got the job done. Putting the traitor lieutenant down in the dust has thrown the occupation of Chasm Station into disarray. Breaks my heart. Vanguard elements of the Mobian 21st are moving in even as we speak. As for you, seeing as you're still breathing, Explicator Zola wants a word.
Okay, so this is just a new intermittent cutscene to just kind of tell you what's going on now now that you've just completed the first mission. For now, I'm gonna see what that secondary ability is on this shotgun. What exactly does it do? Loads the weapon with 1 special shell that gives the next shot electrocution, and okay, so I figured it was a stun when I saw it. Okay, so here's what I think so far. It's actually a pretty good DLC. It's nice that they've revamped the story and makes it a little bit more immersive, a little bit more engaging and easier to follow as opposed to how it was beforehand. Kind of like how I've mentioned earlier, Vermintide 2 kind of has the same thing. When I first started playing Vermintide 2, I just couldn't follow the story properly, where I wanted to go through chapters 1 through, I think there's like 6 or 7 chapters in Darktide and Vermintide. I can't really remember. The only way to play them in chronological order is to actually start a session yourself, start an online session yourself, and follow the story that way. It doesn't actually hold your hand and following the story. You kind of have to do it yourself. But here in Darktide, it looks like it is holding your hand as far as how to follow the story properly. Now, as far as the Arbites itself, the arbitrators, it's actually pretty neat that the companion is actually treated as a squad mate. So long as you're near your Mastiff, it actually is treated as being in squad coherency. Your dog can also be fully customized. In fact, when you go into character customization or creating your arbitrator for the first time, you can actually customize the fur pattern and color of your dog, which is actually pretty neat. And of course, armor options as well for the Mastiff, so it's pretty neat. I'm not going to say I'm going to give Fat Shark the benefit of the doubt and say that this is probably going to be the one and only paid DLC for new classes, because who knows, this is probably just because they wanted to add in new story elements or just kind of refresh the story and make it easier to follow. Maybe that's why the DLC is a paid DLC. I'm really hoping that the next classes, and I don't know if this is going to be considered one of 4, because then that would mean the next 3 classes should supposedly be free. It remains to be seen on what the future of Darktide is looking like as far as the new classes go. I'm kind of hoping that the next classes are not paid DLCs. $11.99 is it's not too steep for a DLC. You know, it's a whole new class, different playstyle, new weapons, and of course this also having a companion that's treated as being in squad coherency. So there's a lot to add to this DLC. So for $12, it's actually not too bad. So I will go ahead and recommend and say, yeah, just get the DLC, especially for old-time players like myself. If you've been playing Darktide for years and you want to actually kind of keep the game fresh, I mean, the Arbites DLC is the best way to kind of refresh the game and kind of make it feel new again. New abilities, new weapons, obviously the new class, new revamped story missions, kind of, again, makes it easier to follow the story as a whole. So, I mean, I think it's worth it. I'm perfectly fine with games like Helldivers and even Darktide just monetizing cosmetics. You know, I'm perfectly fine putting money, you know, like $5 or $6 here and there to get some new outfits, get some new armor, get new skins or whatever, just to make my characters look cooler. But I'm not fine with paywalling content that will actually keep the game fresh. In this case, Darktide and the Arbites DLC. Yeah, it's $11.99. It's not too expensive. That's actually one of the cheaper ends of classes or expansions or anything like that. I'm just really hoping that moving forward they aren't going to monetize every single class that comes out. I've always hated the idea of expansions new maps, new weapons, that kind of stuff, always being paywall. That's kind of the one thing I've always hated about the earlier Call of Duties, is when they monetized all the new map packs. Now, at this point, all the maps that come out are always free, which means more content to enjoy. That's kind of what we need to see. If Darktide were to come out with more tile sets and more new missions, obviously those need to remain free, because I can definitely tell that because the player base is already kind of marginalized. I mean, Warhammer as a whole is not the most popular, even though it's kind of blowing up in mainstream. A lot of the games are really niche. Like Darktide, for example, only has around 7,200 players actively per day. I have to look at the Steam charts to see if this update, if RBD has actually kind of increased the player counts a bit. I'll have to double check that really quick. But either way, this is why the Arbites DLC has a mixed review right now on Steam, because of the fact that it was supposed to be a free DLC. At least according to FastShark, the first 4 classes were supposed to be free. So this has kind of caused a bit of a schism in the community. So whether or not this is going to hurt Darktide in the long run remains to be seen, but we have to wait and see what happens until the next class is announced. By then, hopefully it is a free DLC. Otherwise, it's going to create a big problem within Darktide. And if that happens, the game's probably going to die at that point. I still think a portion of me thinks that it's probably not going to happen and that Darktide probably will recover. I think this is just kind of like a small bump in the road. Again, it is a bummer that this is a paid DLC, but we'll see what happens going forward. Otherwise, it is a fun DLC. It's a very enjoyable class. I do love the new weapons. The shock maul, I mean, it kind of just plays like the other maul that's available in the game, even though its secondary attack it's supposed to stun on electrified enemies. I don't know if that means you have to electrify an enemy with the shotgun's alternate fire and then use the special attack on the maul to actually stun the enemy when they're still electrified. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be, just because of the way it's worded. It says to stun electrified enemies. That's how it's worded on the shock maul. I'll have to play around with it, see if that's what it means by it, or maybe it's kind of just like a little typo type thing. But either way, I'm gonna keep playing the DLC, keep moving forward, see what the rest of the talent looks like, see how that's gonna affect the play styles for the Arbiter. It's gonna take some time, but it's worth the grind just because it's something new to do, and of course see how the story progresses and how you're actually supposed to earn your way to playing the higher difficulties besides just leveling up your character. Overall, I do give the Arbites DLC a thumbs up, but more of like a cautionary thumbs up. Hopefully we don't see this again in the next DLC or the next class that comes out. All right, that's about it for this video. I'm gonna go and play some more Darktide.